And a pleasant Thursday afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Facebook Live. We are here to take a look at the high school basketball season. Girls and boys getting underway here within the past couple of weeks, and we're going to catch up on what is going on and what we expect for the next couple of months. I'm Dave Purpura, along with Frank DiRenna, Skye, Hennen and Jarrod Ulrey. Jarrod is still staying busy with football. He will be in Canton tomorrow as Pickerington Central takes on Cincinnati Elder in the Division I state final. Gentlemen, well, we are into this thing now.
Finally inside.
Finally inside also. If you saw us a couple days ago, we were a little frigid out at Pickerington Central talking to Jay Sherritt. And again, we expect a lot of great representation around the area. We had a Division I state finalist last year in Pickerington Central on the girls' side. Afrocentric looking for another Division III state championship on the girls' side. Olentangy got to the final. Olentangy Liberty got to the Final Four on the boys' side last year. Harvest Prep was state champion in Division III. South State runner-up in Division II. First off, we'll start with the girls. And gentlemen, what have we noticed so far anyway here through the first couple of weeks of the season?
Oh, I noticed USA Today, Afrocentric, ranked number 6 in the country. Ranking just came out this morning, so that's great for Afrocentric. They should have another great season. Westfield South, 2-time district champions, lost a few players, but still have 2 key players back, Adisa Jones and Gabby Hutchinson, so they should still make some noise.
As far just to add about Afrocentric, yes, they lost Jordan Horston, great player at Tennessee this year, but they're going to be really amazingly good again this year. They already beat their first opponent 113-3. Now I know that some of the city league teams at there's a lot of mismatches in the city, but you're going to see a lot of big blowouts for them this year. I mean, this is a team that is they're 28-0 last year. Good chance they could do something like that again this year. They've got Sakima Walker, 6'4" post player, heading to Rutgers. Nyam Thornton, point guard this year, going to Texas Tech, and Alexi Smith, another very talented player. She's headed to Minnesota, and they've also got lots of other players that probably would start for a lot of teams in the area. So they're a phenomenal program going on right now out there.
Yeah, and a couple surprising teams so far. Maybe not that surprising, but Westerville North is 3-0, as is Hilliard Bradley, and both of them were around 500 last year. They jumped. Westerville North jumped out and beat Gahanna, which was one of the predicted to be one of the best teams in the area. So it could be an interesting year.
You mentioned Afrocentric. They led your preseason Super 7 poll. Afrocentric was number 1, obviously. Pickerington Central 2nd. Westerville South, that you mentioned, Frank, was 3rd. Gahanna, Olentangy, Liberty, Reynoldsburg, and Watterson were the rest of that top 7. You talked about Afrocentric. Pickerington Central is one of the teams I cover. I plan to see them tonight when they take on Pickerington North. That was a game that was moved because football is tomorrow. They're off to a 1-1 start. Excuse me. They've got a Columbia commit and Nicole Stevens running the point. She had been committed to Akron, but she did change to Columbia over the summer. Ariana Redman is a senior guard who's playing really well so far. Skye Williams, a junior guard, she's going to be back in a couple of weeks from injury. You've got a lot of, and also, let it be said, they have Madison Green. Not the Madison Green that we know from the past couple of years, but a younger freshman named Madison Green who had 12 points in their win over Gahanna on Tuesday night. And the elder Madison Green, as it were, was there sporting her Ohio State shirt because that's where she now plays to watch her namesake, if we want to put it that way, with a very strong effort. You had mentioned Westerville South a minute ago. They have a new coach as well. Eric Herzberg is now with the Sales.
Jermaine Geis, former boys basketball coach, former professional player, former player at Westerville South. He's excited about this team. Like I said, they lost quite a bit, but they returned the 2 big ones, plus a couple other role players. And Jones and Hutchinson have both already signed to play at Ohio State, so Ohio State should have quite the program here for the next few years.
Absolutely.
As far as Gahanna, they're off to a little bit of a slow start. They're 0-3. But I think the fact that they were able to compete really well with Pickerington Central, I think, is a sign that they're going to be okay. They've got, and I'm sure we'll probably talk about this more about some of the individual players, but they've got Eden Battle and Morgan Darnell are a really, really talented backcourt for them. They're very experienced. I believe they're both like either 3 or 4 years. They've both kind of been on varsity for 4 years. So they're going to be a very difficult team for most teams to deal with. And Liberty is also kind of off to a slow start. They got beat by Olentangy. But they've had some injury situations. I know Tegan Pfeiffer is not quite back to where they want her to be physically right now. She's been battling an injury, and they have some other people that have been dealing with some issues like that.
It helps when you have one of the better coaches around too. Crafty
Yes, he is.
one of the better coaches around.
Absolutely. And as far as Reynoldsburg and Watterson, the other two teams you mentioned, Reynoldsburg is a younger team this year. Kyra Walker is a senior for them. And she's a very experienced player for them. And then they have some the Miller sisters are both very talented players for them. They're going to be fine. They might be the type of team that kind of emerges later and contends for a district championship. They could go through some ups and downs in the regular season. I don't think it'd be really surprising. And then as far as Watterson looks the same as they do every year. They're very well coached. They play very good defense. Coach Tom Woodford has a system there. I mean, you can count on them to win 15 to 20 games pretty much every year. That's just a great thing he's got going on over there. They don't necessarily, ever have superstar players like like some of the Afrocentric players. They don't get those type of players, but they get lots of solid players like Paige Woodford, his daughter, and they'll be a very difficult team for people to have to battle against.
They're always very fundamentally sound, and this goes back to the early 2000s, and they always work together very well. Another player for them, Kevin McGuff's daughter, plays for Watterson as well. Of course, the Ohio State coach as well. Scott, any other early? You mentioned Westerville North. That's been off to a really good start in the OCC Buckeye.
Yeah, they're 3-0, and Amari Martin runs point for them. Alyssa Wright is a shooting guard for them. They've been doing very well. And Bradley beat Liberty earlier, and they have the twin sisters, or junior guards, Chloe Callahan and Carly Callahan, and they've had this 5'7" sophomore Macy Chapman, who has been playing lights out early on. So that Steve DeDent really has that team going. They always play. A Steve DeDent team always is very defensive oriented, and it's show early.
Now, in addition to the Super 7 preseason poll that you put together some players to watch as well. And another team that you cover, this name jumps out at me. Jessica Nation is a senior forward at Olentangy Berlin. I covered her in her younger years when she was at Olentangy. Any thoughts on the Bears and their second year as a program?
Well, they I believe they were 13-10 last year. They had a winning record, which is pretty good for a school playing all Division I teams, first year school. Jess Nation, though, she had a knee injury, and they're hoping, they have their fingers crossed that she'll be back by February. But Maddie Goodman, Courtney Suchan, they're both back, and they're playing. They're really playing well. They had a really tough opener against Watterson, and Watterson being the defensive-minded team, they limited their opportunities in that. But I think overall, Berlin could even challenge for the title in the OCC Cardinal this year.
And that Hilliard Bradley, as you mentioned earlier, will be one of the teams that they were going to have to go through.
We've mentioned Watterson. So I think that the CCL is fairly interesting. I mean, Hartley should be solid this year. They've got Randy Corcorax's daughter, Cammie. She's a junior, and she's actually a really great softball player.
Yes.
That's her #1 sport. She's also a really good basketball player, and they've got a lot of talented, experienced players around her, and I know you covered the sales.
They brought back a few girls from last year, Emma Burns, Katie Schuler, Stephanie Karras, among others, Gracie Wilson, among others, and they've got a new coach in the aforementioned Eric Gersberg, who coached Westerville South.
Good guy.
He really good job there. He is. I mean, it's going to be a different look for them. Brian Cromwell had been their coach for 9 years. I mean, they're looking to do some different things this year, and they're playing a tough schedule. They're one of the smaller Division I schools. They had a win the other night, I believe, against Ashland. Might have been just last night. I want to say over Westerville Central to get them on the winning page for the first time this year. Looking through this list that you put together again, somebody also jumps out to me is Amari Russell from Dublin Kaufman. They had a huge win over Upper Arlington the other night. I think it was 76-32. They're trying to reassert themselves in the OCC Central. They're always a power in that league. Can that continue with what you know about the Shamrocks?
Yeah, they've got an extremely talented group of young players this year. Ariana Russell's one of them. They've got a couple of seniors that should be key players for them. Juliana Burris is one of them. But they've got a lot of really young players. You've got this girl named Tessa Grady. She had a great game for them the other night. And just kind of the sense of newness out there with bringing in a new coach. It's Adam Banks has been an assistant with the boys program for the last few years, and I think maybe they're kind of starting over, but that program's always going to have talent. I mean, this goes back to 10, 15 years ago when they've had just great players come through there year after year.
And they continue to reload, like you said. I mean, J.C. Sheldon, who was named, how many times did we talk about her the past couple of years? And of course, she is playing for the Buckeyes right now. UA, I mentioned a second ago, and they're reloading, and with Macy Spielman, one of the best players that they've ever had come through their program, Chris's daughter. Their all-time leading scorer, their all-time leader in assists. She's now playing at Bowling Green, so they're kind of trying to find themselves at this point. You covered Davidson. Anything that you've seen with them so far?
They lost the program's all-time leading scorer, Emily Simon, who went down. She's playing at Charleston now. But they brought a nice nucleus back, led by Cindy Peterson, a point guard, a few other key players back. So I know coaches are looking for a solid season.
Haley Cox was on that list from Central Crossing in the preseason as well.
Yeah, she's a senior, and she'll be leading that program. They're really young, and they're learning their way around. Georgia Laxo is a key scorer for them, and they have a new coach, so it'll be they're still trying to find their footing right now.
There's a lot of good players in Delaware County. I mean, as we've talked about some of the teams, Delaware Hayes, I think, will be solid. In the OCC Cardinal, I mean, that league actually kind of looks pretty wide open.
Sahila is a decent team this year.
They lost to Jerome the other night,
yeah.
which is, they haven't done that for them. Jerome has maybe got one of their better teams they've had in a while, and Bradley is off to a good start.
And Berlin beat Delaware a couple nights ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And in Delaware, while we're talking about Delaware Christian.
Yeah.
Also, we'll just mention them a little bit in passing because we don't really cover any of those other schools. But Lissy Snoffer is having she's off to a great start. I think she had 32 the other night for them. They're going to be a Division IV team that's going to be in the mix, I think, again this year.
And looking, I think we've mentioned 4 of the 5 OCC divisions. The only one we really haven't touched on is the Capital, and that begins with Newark, of course.
Yeah.
They're always going to be strong every year, and then behind them it's probably Canal Winchester, New Albany, Big Walnut, which had a game suspended against Groveport the other night because of a power outage. So we'll see how the rest of that league kind of shakes out behind them. We talked about, in discussing what to mention on this show, anything in particular that we ought to look for this winter. I guess we've touched on a lot of those things. Any particular predictions stand out to you guys about anything that we might see?
One other conference, we didn't actually mention the MSL Ohio, and I think we probably should just touch on that a little bit because I know that you're probably really high on Whitehall from everything that you've been from. I mean, they added Alexia Mobley from Reynoldsburg, and they have some other really good players back. And I think Worthington Christian in that league is going to be a very solid team with Catherine Weekly back this year. Should be a pretty strong league. Yeah,
Grandview. They have Hannah Yoakum back for her 3rd year starting, and at point, and Emma Hall. She has Steve Hall, former Ohio State player. It's his daughter. She averages double digits in rebounds. So, and yeah, they have an up and coming team.
Mobley's only a sophomore, and she's committed to Louisville, and she's already breaking school records, and she's only played 3 games. So that tells you how good she is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So a lot to look forward to in the girls' game, and we're moving on to the boys' side now. Of course, they just started on Saturday. Actually, no, there were some games last Wednesday. The night before Thanksgiving, there were a couple of games played as well. When we look at just kind of the class of the area, touching on the Super 7 that you put together, Hilliard Bradley, number 1. Matalaco is going to be a guy that a lot of people talk about. Scott, I know he falls in your coverage area.
Yeah.
I remember watching him when he was a kid,
Yeah.
and his dad still was on Tim Casey's staff at Upper Arlington, and people were telling me in 2013 and 14 he's going to be the best of the bunch, and he's pretty much borne that out at this point.
Yeah, he's going to Princeton. and Hilliard Bradley is stacked again this year. I mean, they have the coaches, Brett Norris, his son, Keaton Norris will run the point. A.J. Mergen started for him last year. He was an all-league football player at quarterback. You have Chris Mayfield back, a big, thick guy in the post. You know, he's 6'3", 6'4", but he's going to play defensive line at Michigan State. He's a recruit for there. And then you have his younger brother, Deshawn Mayfield. He is lanky and long, and he's going to cause a lot of people problems. One thing they don't, Jack Pugh, he hurt his foot last year. He's 6'6", big guy inside. He decided to concentrate on football, so he's not half back. So they don't have that, but they're still pretty stacked. One thing that'll be interesting is tomorrow night they play Thomas Worthington, who have a lot of move-ins coming in, and that could, and I believe Bradley has won 43 league games in a row, so that could be on the line tomorrow night. I know they'll be both teams will be ready to go for that game.
That's a huge early matchup. I mean, and that's probably not even doing it justice, but you don't always see those quality matchups here within the first year of the season. Yeah. Boy, you will now. Looking at the rest of the Super 7, draw whatever motivation you want out of this. Pickerington North is second. Thomas, as you just mentioned, is third. So one of the three teams in the poll going at it tomorrow night.
Pick Central's third.
Pick Central is third. Okay. Maybe I looked at the wrong thing. I see Pick Central being fourth on here.
Oh, okay.
On this list. Columbus South is fifth. Walnut Ridge is sixth, and Dublin Kaufman, who's been the class of the OCC Central, or at least one of the classes of the OCC Central,
you're right.
For a while, is seventh. I try. This is why I bring my computer in.
No, you're right.
Because there's no way I'm going to remember all this stuff. So look a little official too. With the two Pickeringtons, I know I had both of those, and you wrote quite a bit about them in your preseason poll. North doesn't have one of the best players in the area in Jack Sawyer. He got injured during football. He's going to miss the whole season, we believe. But it's not like their cupboard is bare. I mean, Hunter Shedenhelm was a heck of a three-point shooter. Casey George, who had 22 points the other night in their win against Lyndon McKinley, is really coming on. He's a junior. And Pick Central, their roster isn't complete yet because, again, of football tomorrow night, and that's one of their top players in Garner Wallace, who had a heck of a breakout year last year, and he may be in line to be quarterback next season. Once the door opens there.
Scoop. Is that a scoop?
I think so. Anyway, I mean he's definitely waited his turn behind Crenshaw, but what we're looking at. I mean, we expect those teams to be obviously right there in the OCC Ohio and at the district level.
Kind of fascinating that those teams they have so much talent, in the lower as these years go by. I mean, they keep reloading, like we've said about some of the other teams. I mean, the fact that Garner Wallace averaged 10.5 points last year. I mean, they lost Javon Garcia as a great player.
And going to UMass.
And yet it doesn't seem like they're going to be taking a big step back. Talik Walker's a really good player. Connor Maciag's a really good player for them. And Pickerington North can lose Jack Sawyer, and they're still okay.
At Central, they have a tall guy in the middle, Haji Diem, but they're not going to have the huge guys maybe like they've had in the past with Sterling Manley, who got plenty of TV time last night during the Buckeyes win over North Carolina. And even going back to Colton Landis, who graduated from last year, and he's playing at Rio Grande. So we'll see. Those teams are going to be there at the end of the day.
You had mentioned Thomas Worthington having some transfers in. I mean, they got. We know about Jalen Solinger, and then they did have a kid transferring from Licking Heights, and I mean, it seems like they've got about as good of a junior class as you could possibly have. So they're going to be great this year. They're going to be great next year.
Tyrese Huey, I believe, is the young man who came in from Licking Heights. On those final three teams in the top 7, South, what a program they've put together. As we mentioned earlier, that they were the state runner-up in Division II last year. Walnut Ridge in the same division as them, won 19 games, and Dublin Kaufman. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk more about some of the top players here, but there might not be a better player this year than Von Hammer Davis from Walnut Ridge. Senior headed to Kent State. He entered the season with scoring more than 1,400 career points, and he's got some pretty good players around him too. With
with Keon Magwood and some other guys. Of course, South is the team. They were 28-2 last year. They've moved up from Division II to Division I. But I guess if there's ever going to be a year that they have to be moved up a division, I mean, they've got the talent to hang with these other teams. And my understanding is that it's probably just like a one-year thing. They're probably going to be back down to Division II next year. So, maybe it's kind of bittersweet because, maybe they would be kind of like a state title contender, Division II. Maybe Division I, maybe they're looking like a district title contender, but maybe they've got enough to make it even further than that.
I'm sure there were a fair amount of inner smiles and or fist pumps when it was announced that South was going to Division I, because that kind of opens the door for some other teams in Division II.
Yes.
And we'll see. We're going to talk more about the Mid-State League in a couple of minutes here. Christopher Anthony, another guy I think that you expect a lot of things out of, a senior guard from Harvest Prep.
Well, I mean, he's got pretty much a new team around him. Excuse me. He's basically got, it isn't just pretty much. He has an entire new team around him. Every other player that played even 1 minute in the state tournament for them was lost to graduation. So he's back as a senior, and he's got this brand new team around him. But they are always very high on their young players. They have some kids that were like JV-ish type players last year that probably would have played if there wasn't so much talent around them. So I mean, I wouldn't expect Harvest Prep to take a huge step back. I think that it may be a challenge for them to win another state title, but the fact that they can talk like they can be in the discussion. They've got a player average 25 points a game last year. It says something about their program.
And while we're there, you guys obviously cover some MSL schools as well. Anything standing out to either of you about some teams in either of the divisions that you cover?
Well, Grandview was a district champion in Division III last year. They have dropped to Division IV, and that could be pretty interesting. Like you mentioned, Harvest Prep. They have Brian Collier, who's in his 4th year starting for them, as is Luke Lachey, who's going to play football at Iowa. But they're very good. They also have an addition, a 6-foot guard who moved in from UA, and Aiden Leslie. He's looked good early on.
Whitehall, they lost quite a bit, but Coach Williams thinks they can go 10 deep, 9 deep, and he said this might be the deepest team, it might be the deepest team he's had since his 7 seasons there. And Academy, defending champions, they did lose quite a bit, but a nice nucleus back, and Coach Worcester thinks, led by his son, they can be contenders again.
That league is really deep. I mean, think about how deep it is. Worthington Christian, they were only in district semifinals last year, but they did win 20 games, and they've got DJ Moore back, he's a sophomore now, and they've got several other players. They've got almost their entire team back. They're a little bit banged up right now, but I think that's a team that's going to be, very difficult to deal with in Division III. And then, of course, Wellington, they're moving back to Division IV, where they've had quite a bit of success there. They couldn't quite stack up last year. Now they lost Dallas Patrick to graduation, but they've got Meredith as a kid. His first name escapes me at the moment, but Elijah Meredith. He's back this year. He's going to play the entire season for them. Last year he was only able to play the first half because of the transfer rule. And then they've got some other guys that are back from that team last year too, so they're going to be a tough team to deal with.
We've talked a good deal about the OCC so far. We mentioned the Cardinal, we mentioned the Ohio, some about the Central Division. Anything in those other 2 divisions that any of you cover standing out to you?
Hillary Davidson, district final last year, lost to Liberty, lost to 10 seniors. They have no starters back, no players back from last year's team, all university players, so they're pretty much starting from scratch.
Kind of interesting about Dublin Kaufman. They lost all like I believe 7 or 8 seniors from that team, and then they had Dominic Penn move out of town and go to a prep school. So they're pretty much starting over, but yet it seems like they're going to be pretty good again. This Keaton Turner is a player to watch this year. I mean, they're just they spread the ball around so much last year when they had their great season because they just had so many great players. I mean, he only averaged about 9 points a game, but I think you're going to see that at least double, probably even more. He had a phenomenal preseason for them, and J.C. Shelton's brother, A.J. Shelton, is going to start seeing a lot. I mean, he's going to be a key player for them this year too.
In the Capital Division, as we said on the girls' side, Newark is the team that everybody's going to try to knock off. Canal Winchester has 4 starters back. Bilal So, Cole Metzler on the inside, and then you got Jack Beeler, who had a huge game.
He looked really good the other night.
Yeah, you saw him.
7 3-pointers.
And 25 points in the win over Dublin Scioto.
Good game, great game, but Beeler was definitely a difference.
And he's their quarterback on the football team that has been so good the past couple of years as well. New Albany's off to a 2-0 start with plenty of starters back for them, and then you've got Big Walnut and Franklin Heights in that division as well.
We mentioned, we talked a lot about the OCC Cardinal and the OCC Ohio at the beginning here, but those conferences are actually really deep.
Yeah.
And as far as the OCC Cardinal, Dublin Jerome is off to a really, really good start. Now, they replaced almost everybody from last year, but they've got a huge win over Newark the other night, and then they beat London, and a lot of people think London's going to be really good this year. So they could be a team to watch in the OCC Cardinal along with Bradley and Thomas Worthington.
Yeah.
And as far as the Ohio, that's always really deep, and this year's no exception. Reynoldsburg and Gehanna are also going to be district title contending type of teams this year. I think we're going to see that. Reynoldsburg loses key players every year, but there's so many guys in that district that play basketball that they're going to be very good again. I mean, Sean Moore might be the best player this year, but then they'll have like a junior and a sophomore who's ready to step in later this year and the next year. And then Gehanna has possibly the area's best sophomore in Sean Jones. It could be either him or DJ Moore or some guys like that, but Sean Jones, really exceptional ball handler, and he's ready to step into something even bigger this year. He had a great freshman season.
Final thoughts. Did we miss anything on any team?
Well, yeah.
And Buckeye.
The OCC
Buckeye
Buckeye
division.
And
Overtaking
It's
Briggs,
right,
112
Briggs,
points last
yeah.
week, or last night over Briggs.
yeah,
That's right.
Well, you guys were talking about the depth of the other one. The OCC Buckeye kind of seems to be up in the air. No
Balance
one
right now,
really
yeah.
knows what to expect. I mean, Orange, they were in the district final, lost to Newark last year. They have Ryan Cutler and Andre Irvin back, and they're going to again use a 5-guard attack. But they also have an addition, 6'5" junior forward, Jason Foster. He come in from Northland, and in the first few games he's looked, he's done very well for him. So that could be a nice wrinkle in the conference. Send it over to Frank. I mean, Kevin Martin. He defense is the basis of everything he does, and I have a feeling they're going to creep in this year.
His second season there at Central, graduate of Westfield North, and he's definitely looking forward to this season. He figured 1 year under his belt now. He said he's going to rely on defense, so it's going to be a key for Central.
It's what he did at Johnstown year after year after year.
You mentioned Northland. If we probably should touch on the city North for just a moment. Northland is very possibly the team to beat, but that league actually looks pretty balanced. I think Northland with Mikhail Massey, Beechcroft and J.J. Simmons are both going to be really good teams. Linden, I've heard, has a really good team this year too. So they could be a team along with South of Walnut Ridge in the south, and Eastmore's always got a nice group of talent out there, and they've got one of the best coaches in the area, Jim Miranda. So you can expect them to be pretty solid. And Afrocentric has Callie Davis, and they're in Division III, and I would expect them to, be a district title contender this year. I mean, they almost always are. They had a little bit of a step back last year, but I think they'll be back right where they want to be this year.
And I can't believe we missed the CCL
The Sales.
or
Should be
St.
a
Charles.
St. Charles.
St. Charles. I mean, St.
Watterson,
Charles has
I mean,
a different
it's a
look.
backyard brawl every
Well, but
night
St.
it
Charles
seems
has a
when they get
different
together.
look. They have some beef this year, and some height. And I'm talking about not just rail thin guys in the middle. I mean, Victor Searles is 6'8", and he's thick. They have a Gehanna move in. Well, I guess it's transfer at St. Charles. Josh Whiteside. He will only play the first half of the season and then be out because of transfer rules at the high school. But they also have a freshman, Chase Walker. He's 6'5", and these guys will be hard to move. And you have Spencer Martin outside running the point, or they could really surprise a lot of people.
As far as the other some of the other teams, I mean, Hartley's kind of rebuilding this year. I mean, I think that they're always going to be a difficult team because they're very well coached. So they're going to be a tough team to deal with. But they have pretty much a brand new team this year. And then Reedy has Darius Parham back, and they have some other key players back from that team. So I would expect them to take a little bit of a step up too in their second year under Tony Basutti.
DeSales has a couple starters back as well, including Desmond Watson, who had 39 points in their season opening win on Saturday against Huber Heights Wayne, and they fell to Westerville Central the other night as well. So their hopes are high. I mean, they were a 3-pointer away. I believe the young man's name was Colby Rankin from Hartley, who hit the 3-pointer last year at the buzzer to give them the district title in Division II over DeSales. So there's no shortage of motivation there. And DeSales shared the title with Watterson last year. Those two teams hook up tomorrow.
That's right.
In the CCL opener for both of those teams.
Watterson will always be solid. I mean, they have a system out there. They play great defense. They have big thick guys down low, and they play slow, and they kind of take teams out of their rhythm. That's what they do. They're so good at it.
All right, well, we've spent about 30 minutes breaking down the basketball scene here. Go to our website, ThisWeekSports.com. Our Hoop It Up page has all the basketball information that you need. We've got our previews being posted. Boys ran today in pretty much every area. Girls were last week. So Jarrod and I will be back Tuesday at noon to announce the honorees for the Central Ohio All-Star Preps Banquet. That is the refurbished banquet that we're going to have on Tuesday, May 26th. That's the day after Memorial Day. We're going to honor fall, winter, and spring athletes all at the same time, and that's going to be down at the Greater Columbus Convention Center. We'll let you know all of our fall honorees coming up at noon on Tuesday. Gentlemen, good to do this, and we will be back to talk to you not only next week, but during the winter.
Good to be inside.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
No hat today. So, for Jarrod Ulrey, Skye Hennen, Frank DiRenna, I'm Dave Purpura. So long, everybody.